All right, good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to another lesson with me, Coach Matt. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic week, and I hope you guys have been practicing your chess. I see already quite a few of you have been playing some of the tournaments that we've been posting on online for you guys, so I'm very happy to see that. Remember, guys, practice makes perfect. And if you want to master a skill, whatever that skill might be, whether it's chess, tennis, anything of that nature, you need to invest some time and you need to put in some effort. So for those of you who are already doing that, fantastic. Very happy to see that. All right, guys, thank you for being on time. Majority of you were excellent. Really happy to see that too. Let's get started with today's lesson. Guys, we've got a few quite interesting exercises, sort of tactics. I think it's been a nice sort of pattern that we've been working on. We do our tactics first, make sure everybody's warmed up and ready to go. And then from there, we move on to a couple of end games. Both end games are pretty doable. Nothing too hectic today. Just trying to make sure that we can put away those winning positions and make sure that we have the tools necessary so that when we've got those winning positions, we don't let them off the hook. All right, guys, we start off with the easiest of the exercises. You can see I put a star next to a couple of them. Those are a little bit more challenging, but nothing you guys can't handle. Okay, let's get cracking. White to play and win. Who's got the goods? As usual, guys, participation is essential. Please get involved. You can choose to do so on either the Zoom or the Lichess. That's up to you. All right, so as usual, guys, let's investigate all possible checks, all possible takes. All potential attacking moves also should be investigated. It's a good idea. You don't want to be missing out on any potential opportunities. So like I said, I felt this one was a little bit easy. There's sort of only really one attacking move that I can play. The question is, can you make it work? I think that's what it comes down to in this position. But we're going to find out in just a moment who's got the goods. I hope you guys can all see everything. I hope everything's fine. Remember, if there are any issues, technical difficulties or otherwise, please notify me. Otherwise, I will not be aware of that. Okay, it doesn't seem like anybody's got any answers here. What's happening, boys?
So I can't find the exercise on Lichess.
And it's not allowing me to type on Lichess.
So guys, I see most of you have managed to find it. It should be there under public studies. As you can see here, I'm going to highlight it on my shared screen. I would recommend typing this into the search for studies sort of place. That's where you do that. And then hopefully you can come up with it, you can find it. Remember, if you can't, it's probably not the end of the world. You can just follow the shared screen because that's why we do it this way. So you guys can see it in that case. But look, it shouldn't be any different from what it was previously. If you were able to access it previously, you should be able to access it now. And this is what you need to search. All right, guys, I need to continue with the lesson here, so let's get on with it. it is white to play. Like I said, you got to look at all attacking and checking moves. So I would have looked at this first, as crazy as it might seem. Queen h7. Of course, black can just take it. Doesn't seem like it's very fruitful. Another thing that you needed to realize, this is a bit of a target square. Quite excited about trying to get something to attack that. I mean, you could maybe think about bishop h3, hitting the e6 pawn. Doesn't look like it's that good. We know the bishop prefers this diagonal in any case. And after bishop h3, it does seem like a move like queen f6 would be a pretty good way for black to defend the pawn. The move you guys are looking for in this position is knight g5. And that's an interesting one because it doesn't look like a safe move. The queen is attacking this knight, and of course that means that black can just take the knight for free. What are we threatening? Well, it's a double threat. We are threatening queen h7 mate. We are also threatening bishop takes b7, and this is really what makes this a good move. So there are no, let's call it, good responses that black can play in this position. Of course, the mate on h7 is the key issue that needs to be addressed here. So, I mean, bishop takes g2, is just a fail. White's just mating on h7, so that's not going to be any good. Alternatively, g6, so it's not very useful. Black might as well just take the knight, and this is the point. So after queen g5, bishop b7, it's not like I'm just trading knight for bishop. I'm also getting something additional here in the form of this rook on a8. So here, it's one of those situations you're like, okay, I'm losing material. Black's got to say to himself, what's the most that I can at least get for this rook? And it seems clear that knight d7 is the move so that they connect the rooks and so that this rook can defend this rook. So bishop a8, rook a8. And then the show goes on. Maybe something like queen e4, attacking these two squares again. It does seem like rook e8 will solve that problem. There's a little bit of insight there as well. One final question before I move on. Instead of knight d7, let's say, for instance, that black played knight c6. Would it be better, this is a key question, would it be better for white to take the knight, or would it be better for white to take the rook? You guys have got a couple seconds to let me know which is the move that is preferable. Which move should white play? Is it better to take the knight, or is it better to take the rook? And then, of course, why? I mean, you can't tell me the one or the other is better unless you have a reason. I hope you guys are winning with the lead chess there. I see people popping on and off. I don't know what that means. Okay, that seems good. So Gabriel says take the knight because you want to lose a piece. Guys, it's always about points. I was going to say about pawns, my bad. It's always about points. Points is what matters. It's like, you know, it's not one piece for one piece. It's which pieces are more valuable. So how many are you going to gain more or less points? That's what it comes down to. So if I take a knight, I'm +3. I gain 3 points. If I take a rook, I'm like, wait a second, don't you gain 5 points? Well, I do. I gain 5, but I lose 3. And the difference between 5 and 3 is 2, which means I'm only +2 as opposed to +3 in the previous example. So Gabriel, that would be correct. Bishop take the knight rather. And the point here is you rather take a free piece than winning an exchange. An exchange is a rook for a minor piece, whether that minor piece be a bishop or a knight. Fantastic, nicely done. Let's move on. Now this one I actually thought was quite challenging as well. I probably should have highlighted this because I feel like it's quite a tricky move to see for white. So it's white to play, and we've got to find a winning move. So I'm going to give you guys a clue here. It's not a mate. It's not a mate, and it's nothing. You're not winning like a rook or something like that. It's not a mate, and it's not a rook. So here's the action. You can see the bishops are looking at one another. So there's something that it needs to take place around this side of the board. White to play and win some material. Let's see what you guys can come up with. Again, of course, all attacking, taking, and checking moves need to be had a look at, but I've already kind of given you a clue. You know that it's not like a check, or you know that it's not, those moves you'd have to look at first. But now I've given you a bit of a heads up, save you a bit of time in solving this one. Let's see what we can come up with. Come on, boys. And girls. I don't see any girls in the lineup, but hopefully there's someone out there. F3 does look good. Kind of happy with F3. We'll get into that later. Again, guys, we're not dealing with that simple calculations anymore. I think from now on, what we should do is we should say you're going to put in 2 moves of analysis. Because if you just give me 1 move, it doesn't really tell much of a story. I don't really know what it is you're talking about. You could say H3, coach. And then I'm like, okay, what's good about H3? Whereas if you can at least back it up with a second move, then I at least have a better understanding. You're like, no, I go H3, then he goes bishop E2, then I go rook E2, and then that's when the magic happens. And I'll be like, okay, well, that's good, or maybe that's not so good. So we've had F3 as a potential solution. I think the obvious move that black will play is bishop H5. Glad to see you have found the lead chess, Gabriel. I hope that wasn't too much hard work. And hopefully whatever you did, you'll remember so that you're able to do it next time. Or you could be like me, where sometimes it just works out and you're just not sure how. And then you can't remember it for the next time. Who knows? Okay, well, that's fine. You can chat on the Zoom. I mean, it's not the end of the world. Fortunately, it's only that, as long as you can see. I believe it must be a setting of some kind. But let's see. Let's try that. Maybe it's my bad. Let me try this. Okay, try the chats again, please. It looks like maybe, let's see if the chats work. All right, so we've had F3. F3 is a good move. Let's go bishop H5. This is actually the correct continuation. I'll give you some inside analysis in a moment. Now, there's a sneaky little move that White can play that wins a piece here in this position. Okay, so I see, well, this chat worked. Happy with that. All right, so nice. Okay, I think that was my bad, because I didn't activate the chat for everybody. Apologies. All right, that's good. All right, so we've had F3, bishop H5, F4 is the correct move here. Thank you, Gabriel. So it gets interesting, and I'm actually going to do this in our heads for a second. So everybody switch those brains on, and let's have a quick calc session here. All right, so what we've got is we've got F4. Now, F4 looks like a bit of a dodgy move. You're like, wait a minute, he just takes the pawn for free. But if you play F4, then this is obviously not happening, because White's going to play bishop takes H5 or bishop takes bishop. So the main move that needs to be investigated is bishop takes E2, which is sort of an obvious move that black will play. And then if you take back, then they take the pawn. So going back to F4, bishop E2, now there's an in-between move, or what's also known as an intermediate move, where White can play F takes G5, where he takes the knight, and then that pawn then attacks the queen. So it forces black to deal with that, okay? And when he does, then I take the piece back on E2, and I end up taking 2 pieces for the price of 1. Let's check it out. So we've dropped a bishop, but they've dropped a knight. So that's piece for piece. And now they can't sort of move this bishop away or do something about the bishop, because they've got to deal with this problem. Now, in some cases, in certain positions, maybe I could move this queen to somewhere where I'd be able to defend the bishop. But unfortunately, that's not an option in this position. Would take the knight and bishop. Yes, so we are basically winning 2 pieces for the price of 1. Exactly that. So queen g5 pretty much forced, and then rook takes e2. Bit of a sneaky one. I'm impressed. Well solved, guys. Like I was saying in this position, guys, remember whenever you're going to attack, you've got to attack weaknesses. So this is a bit of a shot in the dark. This was quite a nice little tactic. So like we said, you always got to be aware of those, and that's why we practice these things, because you know, hopefully you won't miss these opportunities over the board, and hopefully it wins you a few games. But under normal circumstances, this would also be a target. So wherever you move this knight, I'd definitely be eyeing out the target. So you always need to attack opponents, or your opponents, in the positions or points where they're weak. It's not going to help if you try and attack them where they're very strong. For instance, on this pawn, that's way too well defended. All right, nicely solved. Let's move on. Not too bad, this one. Sneaky little tactic that white has. Let's win some material. So let's look at all possible checks, all possible takes, and attacking moves. I'm going to highlight the knights because they look like they got some good stuff going on there. Let's see if we can come up with this one quick. Let's go. Maybe I just planned that one. I knew knight g5 was coming. Yeah, so ng5. Gabriel, try and practice your chess terminology, please, just as you would when you'd notate. I think I spoke a bit about that last week. And I think if memory serves, maybe you weren't there. N for knight, K for king. So that's it. So knight g5, again, guys, let's back it up with a bit of solid analysis. So knight g5, yeah, sure. You attack the queen. The queen's going to just move somewhere, probably like e7. So knight g5, queen e7. And then maybe the queen's looking at this square. I don't really see anything happening on h7, which is definitely a square that you need to have a good look at. I suppose you guys are eyeing at e6 as well, and with good reason. e6 certainly a target square in this position. You're just like, if only this bishop wasn't here, you know, then I'd make it rain. Unfortunately, the bishop is there, so we need to come up with an alternate plan. Knight g5, not bad. It's a good move, but it's not the best move. Come on, guys. What about the rest of you? Remember, it doesn't have to be the best move in the world. You just have to come up with a constructive, positive move that you think is good, that you would play in the position. You know, even if you haven't calculated the mate, whatever, you know, you don't have the choice of just sitting there doing nothing. You need to play some move when it's your turn in the game. So what move would you play that's constructive? I'll be like, okay, he wants to take my bishop. Maybe let me just tuck the bishop back. Or maybe I didn't even see that, and I'm like, no, let me just castle because it improves my position. But the point being is you need to come up with something, and you need, you know, and you need to type that in and let me know about that. The best move you can think of, whether it's the mate or whether it's just something casual like h3. You're like, no, I wanted to play this move because I had a plan. As long as there's a reason for it, it's all good. All right, that's looking very positive from Gabriel. Just remember, Gabriel, it's knight. I know knight is spelled with a K, but chess notation, the K has already been taken by the king. So it's N for knight, N for knight. So how we would write this in, we're just talking about this move now, guys, for those. I'm pretty sure everyone can read the chat, but in case you can't. knight takes c7. So how would I write this in? Well, it's important. We've addressed notation, but it doesn't hurt to go through it again. So knight takes c7, plain and simple. Okay, because it's the knight and then the c7, the square, which it's going. And then, of course, if you're going to take, you use the times, the multiply, or multiplication, or x to signify that. All right, so that's knight takes c7. And this is a pretty cool move. Very excited about that. So mainly, you're winning the rook. I think that's what it comes down to. But if the black queen is interested in taking your knight, and this is really what the tactic is all about, then we see something juicy in this position. We see like, you're like, well, if I could just make this bishop disappear. And we did a few examples about discovered attacks and discovered checks. I think it was 2 weeks ago where we started talking about that. I'm just trying to remember now. Okay, maybe it wasn't 2 weeks ago. Any case, and so wherever this bishop could just disappear, then I'd be able to take this queen. And luckily for us, we have bishop takes e6 with check, which is a fantastic little move. Because now, well, they have to deal with the check, whether they play bishop takes e6 or whether they block or whether they move, whatever they decide to do, they are going to lose the queen. Interesting, they can bring the queen back here, which basically turns out to be the same thing, because they get a knight and a bishop for a queen. So we know that's 6 points for the price of 9. Pretty good deal. So, and as you can see, if I move this just a little bit, ooh, I'm gonna have to move that back. It's distracting, but you can see the notation. Lichess or these online platforms, they put like you know, a little image for the piece, but it's just N takes C7, Q takes C7, bishop, B for bishop. You guys know these things, so that's cool. So Lichess does that work for us. Okay, this one's pretty interesting. I'm going to help you guys with the first move because I don't want us to sit too long on this one. So this is the one that I said is a little bit tricky. We can see it looks like an even position. It's the 2 bishops against the 2 knights. But I think more importantly, black looks like he's got a bit of kingside potential attack. So the first move is rook takes d4. White's pretty much got to take back. What type of pawn is this? Yes, you guessed it correctly. This is an isolated pawn, guys. An isolated pawn is a weakness. Remember, it's a pawn on its own. It's a pawn that doesn't have any support from other pawns. So it's a target. Okay, it's a potential target for us. Let's see what we can come up with. Black to play, and let's see if we can come up with a good move here. So remember, the clue was to attack the king. So look at all possible checks and all possible attacking moves that might involve getting at the enemy king. All right. Thank you for getting involved, Jason. Good stuff. So we can just say P for pawn. I think we've spoken about this previously. That's going to make your life a little bit easier. So just say P for pawn. But correct notation, we just leave that out then. So I think Keanu and is probably talking about Queen G5 or Queen G6. It does make a difference. It does make a difference. So we'll talk about that now. So I think, let's say, I'm not sure which one, because he said queen g7. Of course, we can't go queen g7. So let's just go with queen g5. Queen g5, it looks like, ooh, that's dangerous. We're going to have to speed it up a little bit. So queen g5, it looks like white can probably just take this. Then you're like, ooh, can't I win the queen? But unfortunately, no, the queen can take that knight as well. Just a bit of a no. Not too excited about that one. Knight f3, interesting try. I like this move. Queen g6 is a good move, Keanu. We'll talk about that now. So there's this is now queen g5, then king h1. Now the thing is, I don't know how we're going to make this king. That's the only problem. Is there something here? Is there something here? So my first instinct is to be like, I want to get this rook involved, perform a little bit of a rook lift here. It's just never going to work. There's back rank weaknesses, and the knight's under attack. So that's not going to work. Of course, you need to look at both possible checks. So knight f2. Yeah, but knight f2 doesn't look like it's going to have any... Yeah, sure. I like the enthusiasm. And this is the thing about sacrifices. You need to explore them, but a lot of the time you find that there are solutions. So if rook takes, then woohoo, rook e1, and we win a great game. You know, it's just fantastic. We celebrate. Rook e1 forces rook f1, and that's the ball game. That's mate. That's a beautiful way to finish off a game. I might be very happy with myself if I pull that off. But the snag is here that it looks like white just has queen f2. And if he plays queen f2, then this whole idea just falls flat. Because now you're like, I've just given up 2 pieces, and I don't really have any solid attack. This is pretty locked up. Looks like white's perfectly safe here. Let's go back. So the correct idea, I think we talked earlier about queen g5, queen g6. Check this out. So I think this might be what we were talking about. The problem is white's got time. So surely white can just take this, which is going to be a bit of a snag. But let's say white plays a nothing move, let's say. So knight f3, check. So we've got a check here, and we've said now this pawn is pinned, so he's unable to take the knight back. So king h1. Now, this is again an example of those discovered attacks. You're like, wait a minute, if this knight could just disappear, just check the king somehow, then boom, I'm winning a queen. And then that should get you immediately looking at the 2 potential checks. Excuse me, not that. Knight f2 and knight g3. So if you go knight g3, then suddenly you're going to win a queen because he has to take it back, and then you take a queen. But that was a bit of wishful thinking, because after queen g6, we already addressed that white has the ability to just take that knight, which is not the greatest news ever. So we first play knight f3 check. Then we play queen g6 check. And then we play knight g3. If we play knight f2, same idea. You think you're winning a queen, and then suddenly you don't win anything because they just go queen takes. So again, you need to be very, very, very sure of yourself and double check and even perhaps triple check these ideas to make sure that you don't miss something obvious. All right, and then a fairly simple one for the last one. A nice winning material move. Let's see who can come up with it. Quick, guys. You've got a minute. You got 30 seconds actually, because we need to do these end games, and we are running out of time. All possible checks, all possible takes, all possible attacks. Have a good look. What looks good? How can we get at their pieces? How can we get at their king? What can we do? These are questions you need to be asking yourselves. Okay, who's got what? I'm not seeing any answers, any solutions yet. Come on, guys. So something with a knight. I'll be honest, the first move I looked at was knight g4. And I was thinking, okay, you know, if I play knight g4, maybe they go rook takes queen, then I go knight takes queen check, which is a great one. I sneak that check in, the king will have to move, and then I go rook takes, which looks pretty hopeful. Unfortunately, it seems like on knight g4, maybe they can just play bishop g4. Bishop takes g4, which doesn't seem like it nets us too much. So the correct move here is knight d7 with very much the exact same idea. So I just take the bishop and I'm threatening the queen. So the standard move of taking back drops a rook, and we just want a rook. That's pretty good news. Alternatively, if they do play rook takes e2, then we have the intermediate or the in-between move again. We take the queen with check. The king has to move rook takes rook. King f6, and then again white's just a rook up, nice and easy. Okay, converting a winning endgame. This is an important concept that I wanted to talk about here. I'm gonna have to rush it a little bit, but that's cool, we'll get through it. Okay, it looks kind of easy. You know, you should be pretty happy. 2 pawns, 2 pawns. White's just got an extra pawn here, and it's rook against knight. So it's pretty comfortable as far as the material advantage goes. We know kings are quite important, very important. Let me not understate that. Very important in the end games. Because now they become an active piece. You know, there's not really any big pieces, lots of firepower to do the king's damage, in which case they become useful. So the key concept here is that you need to use the rook to cut the king off. This endgame can go a lot of ways, but the simplest route to victory by far, and I mean by far, is just to cut the opposition king off. Because now it's like he can't cross this line, in which case it's going to make it tremendously easy for me to just run this pawn up the board. Yeah, sure, I might have to support it with the king, but if I do that, I mean, there's basically nothing that they can do. So the best thing that they could hope for is maybe to use the knight to blockade this. So let's say like this, knight f5. Why knight f5? Because now the king can cross the f file. Although, looking at it, it's pretty dodgy. I might just play here because I want them to play king f6 so that I can just, because I identify that now there's a pin here. So I can just play g4 at the right time, which means I'm winning the piece. And obviously, if I win this knight, this is plain sailing. Otherwise, if they do this, if they just dance around, I suppose maybe they could attack the rook. I just go rook f4. Somewhere out of sight, the knight comes back. Then I can just start marching the pawn. King. I'm just going to support this g5 push. Nice and easy. No need to overcomplicate it. I'm always promoting simple chess. Keep your life simple. That's easy. Let's say knight f6 makes sense. Again, maybe hoping to cross, but I can just go g5. That's easy enough. Knight h5. He wants to take my rook. I could probably even let him take the rook and it'd still be winning for white. No need to allow that. I'm going to tuck back to a nice safe zone. Knight here. It looks like he might be coming knight f5, so no need for me to allow that. King g4, covering up these squares. King goes back, g6. g6 also threatening, rook f7. So he moves the king, I move the king. Knight back, king h6. Why? Supporting g7. g7 forces the sack, and then this is pretty much game over. Guys, let's use the next half an hour to play chess games. Remember, I'm going to be here on the Lead Chess. I'm going to be here online. I'm going to be watching you guys play. Let's get some game time in, and then not just today, but throughout the course of the week as well. Guys, look after yourselves. Please practice hard. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.